Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cracking open a set of notes that honestly feels less like digging through archives and more like finding some kind of advanced training manual.
Yeah, exactly. Not just philosophy, but like actual step-by-step instructions. Protocols, almost.
For becoming a cosmic pioneer, no less.
Hmm.
We're talking about specific, sometimes slightly absurd, but really detailed methods.
It's that mix, isn't it? The deeply profound ideas side by side with someone, meticulously measuring their own fingers because they feel a bit swollen. That's kind of the magic here.
And that's our source material for today. We're diving into session 48, recorded way back on April 27, 1964. It's all captured in the early sessions, book 2 of the Seth Material.
Right. So you've got Joseph and Jane there in New York, basically mapping the absolute edges of conscious experience. And Seth is, well, he's giving them homework, intense homework.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically threefold. First,
Mhm.
we really want to unpack these practical instructions for non-physical journeying. What's the difference between just sending your essence versus actually showing up somewhere else?
Essence travel versus manifesting a secondary body, yeah. And second, we need to get our heads around this concept of psychological time. Seth presents it as pretty much the master key to unlock these experiences.
And finally, we get into these amazing field notes, the actual attempts, the bumps in the road, sometimes literally. What happens when the physical world just sort of jars you right back?
Those moments where the invisible smacks right into the visible, it's fascinating stuff.
Okay, but before we jump in, we absolutely have to acknowledge the source here. All this incredible information comes directly from the Seth Material. We're really indebted to the publisher, New Awareness Network, for preserving and sharing it.
Definitely. And look, we really encourage you, if this sparks your interest, go beyond this deep dive, get the original books. There's just so much depth there.
You can find out more, check out their bookstore. It's all at sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
That's the place to go.
And just a reminder, as always, this deep dive is put out completely free of charge. You'll find it on all the major platforms purely for educational purposes.
Okay, let's do it.
Right. So let's start with the prep work. The almost bizarrely physical metrics they were tracking just to get ready for the sessions. One of the things I find most, well, endearing and, yeah, pretty funny about these early records, this constant effort to pin down something totally non-physical with, like, rulers and clocks.
Trying to apply scientific rigor to the ethereal, exactly. So before Seth even properly arrives, Joseph, who's recording everything, notes this physical thing happening. It's become their go-to signal.
The Seth indicator, they call it, right?
That's it. So 4:45 p.m., Joseph feels this familiar rush. It manifests physically as a really noticeable, tangible feeling of enlargement in his right hand.
Not just the hand, but specific parts.
Yeah, palm, index finger, second finger. For them, this wasn't just a weird feeling, it was the sign. Like, okay, Seth's energy is gathering. It's their version of seeing smoke signals on the horizon.
But why the hand, though? You'd think maybe the head, or I don't know, the chest, if it's about consciousness or energy.
That's a really good question. It probably speaks to how energy grounds itself. The hand, especially the dominant right hand, is, our main tool for interacting with the world. Writing, building, making things happen.
Our physical interface.
Exactly. So when this non-physical energy starts to pool, maybe it's natural that the point where our intent meets physical action is the first place to, well, register the change. It's physical, it's undeniable. The waking mind can't just brush it off.
And because they were basically charting unknown territory, they felt they had to, prove it, even just to themselves.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the famous finger measuring.
Oh, the diligence is amazing. Joseph actually writes, a few minutes later, I thought of checking finger circumferences again. He gets out a tape measure. Yep. Measures his second finger at 4:50 p.m., 2.5 inches. An hour later, checks again, 2.25 inches. He's literally quantifying the metaphysical swelling.
And the best part is his note afterwards, feeling like he messed up the experiment.
Right. He writes something like, I feel there would have been a greater difference if I had taken a prompt first measurement. He's got scientific regret. Missed the peak inflation data point.
It perfectly captures that tension, doesn't it? Trying to map this non-linear, non-physical energy convergence using inches and minutes. The measuring tape is their bridge from the known world to something else.
And it's a crucial preparatory step. It sets a baseline. Okay, weird stuff is happening. My body feels different before the main event even starts. It kind of lowers the mental resistance, maybe?
Makes sense, like accepting the premise before the story begins.
Yeah.
And the sensations didn't stop there.
No, they shifted. By 6:30 p.m., the feeling wasn't so much in the hand anymore. He felt these little tingling or thrilling sensations off and on.
Where do they end up?
Eventually, they localized in the back of his ears.
Okay, from the hand action, doing to the ears receiving, hearing, that feels significant.
It does suggest a kind of tuning in, right? Getting ready for communication, not just absorbing energy.
Then, after that, they actually tried their specific practice of psychological time, around 8:30. Jane, who's the channel, apparently didn't feel much shift initially.
And the notes say by 8:50 she was nervous, which sounds pretty standard, those pre-session jitters.
Then bang on 9 p.m., the session starts. Soft, low voice, eyes darkened, ready to go.
So all that physical stuff beforehand, the hand, the measuring, the tingles, it serves a real psychological purpose. It grounds the experience. It makes the boundary between physical and non-physical seem a bit more permeable before the trance even deepens. It's like a gentle merging, preparing the way.
So after all that lead up, Seth finally comes through. And the tone is surprisingly, well, personal. He starts by acknowledging the extra work Joseph's been putting in typing things up.
Yeah, he even offers him the night off. It's such a human touch. He says something like, after our impromptu session the other evening, I did not know whether or not you would be waiting for me tonight, after all that extra typing.
Like a considerate, cosmic colleague.
Totally. And when Joseph says no, he'll stay, Seth replies, the evening is extremely enjoyable, and after having a total of 2 witnesses in one evening, this seems like a very intimate and peaceful session. It really sets this tone of a private study group.
But then, bam, it shifts right into the deep end. Seth congratulates Joseph on his recent successful journey.
And Joseph's reaction is noted right there. He found this very surprising, which has us he hadn't fully clocked these experiences as actual non-physical travel yet.
You were just dipping his toes in, maybe.
Seth confirms that, says he's only at the threshold. But then comes the practical advice. The travel protocol 1.0, you could call it. The real test of how stable, how durable your projection is.
Okay, what are the rules?
2 simple but incredibly challenging things to try if you can maintain enough conscious focus and energy during these journeys.
Number 1.
Attempt to speak to the people you meet while you're out there.
Okay, interact. Don't just observe.
Exactly. And number 2, the real kicker, ask them to write you at your home address.
Wait, seriously. Ask some random person you meet in a non-physical state to send you physical mail.
That's the challenge. Think about it. You've managed to detach from your body, project your essence somewhere else. And the ultimate proof isn't some mystical insight. It's getting a postcard from, I don't know, Boise.
The sheer audacity. Why set the bar that high? Yeah. If just staying out is hard, why demand interaction that needs to cross back into the physical?
That's the core of it, I think. It's pushing the boundaries of materialization and interaction. Just watching passively is one thing, but creating a ripple, an effect that actually bridges the dimensions and leaves physical evidence back in your starting reality. That's the gold standard.
It relates back to an earlier experience Joseph had, right? Seeing someone, but not being able to connect.
Yeah, he'd mentioned this limited glimpse of the girl at the window. Seth clarifies that, yes, the location was real. She was merely a secretary with her back to him heading to another office. So Joseph was there, accurately perceiving the scene.
But the connection failed.
Because of insufficient durability, insufficient energy projection. Seth implies if Joseph had been more solid there, he could have spoken, she might have turned around. But to get that letter in the mail, that requires moving beyond just projecting your thoughts. It requires some level of actual perceivable presence, materialization.
Which leads us right into Seth's explanation of how that even works, how reality itself is structured to allow this.
Okay, so this is where we hit Seth's really core premise. Space and time are merely camouflages. Big statement, right?
Huge. So not fundamental barriers, just elaborate illusions.
Highly persistent, very convincing illusions, yeah. Created by our consensus reality, maybe for the purpose of having focused, linear experiences, but illusions nonetheless.
And if that's true, then our essential self, our personality essence, isn't actually bound by distance at all.
Exactly. The challenge isn't physically crossing miles, it's mentally, psychically seeing through the camouflage. Recognizing that the space between here and, say, Florida isn't a solid thing you need to traverse.
So how does the traveler actually appear somewhere else? Seth gives two ways, right?
Right, two main mechanisms, and it depends on the amount of energy and control involved.
Okay, mechanism A.
That's telepathic travel, or pure essence. This is kind of the lower energy version. Your physical body stays put, maybe in a trance on the couch. Your personality essence, your core awareness, just shifts its focus through that camouflage space.
So you perceive the other location.
Yes, but any interaction would be purely telepathic. If someone was physically present in that location using their normal senses, they wouldn't see a thing. You're like a ghost, a silent witness.
Got it. Now, mechanism B sounds more involved.
It is. This is the secondary camouflage body. It involves what Seth calls a diffusion of energies. Think of it less like Star Trek beaming, like teleporting a solid object.
More like scattering the blueprint.
Kind of. Scattering the energetic information that makes you you, and then recoalescing that information, that pattern, into a temporary physical-seeming form at the destination.
And this creates a duplicate.
Yes. A secondary body appears in the new location, while your original body is still back home. This is the doppelganger scenario, and this is the mechanism you'd need to actually talk to people to fulfill Protocol 1.0.
Okay, but how convincing is this duplicate?
Oh yes, the quality control issue. Seth says this secondary body could be seen by people there as totally normal, physically present, allowing for conversation. Or, he notes, it could be absolutely normal appearing in all respects, or could be less so according to the ability of the traveler.
Oh, I love that. Less so. Like, you might appear slightly blurry, or maybe translucent, flickering like a bad hologram.
Exactly. Your materialization skill directly impacts your resolution, basically. Are you appearing in 4K Ultra HD, or are you kind of a fuzzy, low bandwidth presence? It's wonderfully weird.
And this directly connects to the ultimate challenge, the ultimate proof.
The impossible souvenir. The absolute peak. The thing that would shatter the illusion for good, scientifically speaking. Can you generate a secondary body solid enough, durable enough to actually pick up a physical object in that remote location?
And bring it back. Have it appear next to your physical body.
That's the goal. And this is where Seth gives an amazing, almost funny example. He says, maybe someday you'll manage it. Perhaps someday you will bring a handful of sand back from a Florida beach.
Just imagine a pile of actual Florida sand suddenly appearing on your living room table in Elmira, New York.
He calls it quite an achievement, understatement of the century, because it requires two massive things. First, creating that secondary body that's solid enough to interact with matter, to scoop sand.
And second,
Sustaining the whole projection, the energy link, strongly enough and long enough for that physical matter, the sand, to somehow translate back across the dimensional threshold into your home reality.
why is this so incredibly rare, according to Seth? It's not a lack of innate ability.
It's primarily mental. He says personalities find themselves fundamentally unable to give up belief in camouflaged time and space. It's not just thinking, oh yeah, space isn't real. It demands an emotional and psychic leap.
A suspension of your deepest logic.
Exactly. You have to train your core rigid beliefs about reality to become flexible. You have to, just for a moment, truly stop believing that the wall is solid or that distance is absolute. It's a profound psychological hurdle.
Like overriding your fundamental operating system.
Pretty much. You're fighting years of ingrained conditioning that insists external sensory data is the only reality. To make that leap requires a deep shift in consciousness.
Okay, so we've talked about journeying, secondary bodies, bringing back souvenirs, which all sounds very, out there. But Seth brings this right back to something fundamental. He connects all this practice, especially with psychological time, to the biggest journey we all take.
To death itself. Yeah, he emphasizes again, this travel isn't like getting in a car. It's not transportation from point A to point B. It's a transformation of energy. Your focus shifts, your energy manifests from one location simultaneously to another.
Time just gets ignored.
It's bypassed. He says the journey from Elmira to New York using inner senses takes no time. Because in that framework, linear time is part of the camouflage you're stepping outside of.
So practicing psychological time is like practicing peeling back those layers of camouflage consciously.
Precisely. It gets you closer to the climate, as he puts it, the state of being where Seth exists and where unconsciously we all exist too. He says getting familiar with that state teaches you more about reality than words ever could.
And here's the really big application, the why this matters to everyone part. Seth states it very clearly. The use of psychological time will make the experience of death much less frightening.
It's essentially practice for that final transition, rehearsal for the shift.
How so? What does death actually feel like in this model?
According to Seth, the initial moments after death feel exactly like being in psychological time. There's maybe a brief pause, a moment of disorientation before you fully orient to the new reality.
But if you've practiced,
If you've practiced psychological time, you recognize the feeling, you know this state. You recognize the spacious present, this timeless reality where past, present, future maybe aren't so rigidly separate. Your consciousness isn't thrown into total confusion. It feels familiar.
okay, and what happens if you haven't practiced? If this feeling hits you out of the blue at death?
That's where the fear response kicks in, apparently. The conscious ego, which is so deeply identified with linear time, with its personal history, its memories and sequence, it suddenly perceives this vast, timeless reality.
Like it freaks out.
It panics, it's overwhelmed. And because its anchor has always been its own past, its own timeline, Seth says it chooses to hide in the past.
Hide in the past.
Yeah, instead of embracing the fullness of the spacious present opening up, it retreats into the only structure it understands, its own linear history. And that desperate scramble back through memory lane is what we experience or interpret as the life flashing before your eyes phenomenon.
Wow. So it's not some cosmic movie screening. It's the ego desperately clinging to its old operating system.
That's the idea, a voluntary retreat by a terrified consciousness, choosing the known structure of its past over the unknown freedom of timelessness.
So practicing psychological time isn't just about potential astral travel. It's literally training your consciousness not to panic when faced with infinite reality, training it to embrace the present moment fully.
Exactly. Now, tying this back to the practicalities, all this psychic effort, even just the practice, let alone successful journeying, it takes a toll.
Right. Seth actually voices concern about Joseph getting worn out from the experiments and the extra typing.
He does. And this leads to possibly my favorite piece of practical advice in the entire Seth material. Seth, the non-physical entity teaching about interdimensional travel, warns Joseph about energy depletion.
He says something like, until you learn to replenish your psychic energies, these kinds of experiences will leave you tired. Makes sense.
But then comes the prescription. He says, by all means, get your vitamins instantly, and I would suggest that you take them on a regular, everyday basis.
The Cosmic Guide recommending multivitamins, it's priceless.
It's hilarious, but also profoundly grounding, isn't it? It's this clear acknowledgement that while you're exploring non-physical realms, you're still operating through a physical body.
The interface needs maintenance.
Right. The energy diffusion, the focus required, it taxes the physical system. So yeah, you might be journeying through camouflage space, but you still need your B complex to keep the machine running smoothly. Okay, so now we get to the really juicy stuff. Joseph's detailed field notes from the very next evening, April 28th, 1964. This is him putting Seth's advice about durability to the test. These are the reports from the front lines.
Real-time experiments. What happened first?
The first one is what we can call the swimming pool experience. Joseph manages to get into a state where he's not aware of his body on the bed. He's perceiving himself, maybe that secondary body, maybe just viewing through inner senses at a public pool.
And the scene is clear.
Incredibly vivid. He describes his projected self striding purposefully along with vigorous step, even carrying a folded white towel. The details are sharp. Blue-green opaque water, shining pipework, a graceful pavilion roof, sparkling green and white tile floor. So the visual clarity is definitely there. High-fidelity projection.
But something went wrong.
Yep. The floor had these long, shallow steps. As his projected self is striding along, my right heel slipped off at the edge of a step, and I landed flat-footed on the next step with a jar.
Ouch. Even a projected ouch.
And the sensation was so real, so immediate, it broke the connection instantly. His whole physical body jumped on the bed, and he woke up. Poof. Back in physical reality.
Wow. So the physical body's reflex took over.
It seems like it. That sudden sensation of falling, of losing balance, triggered the physical body's deeply ingrained equilibrium reflex. The nervous system basically screamed danger and yanked consciousness right back into the physical safety net.
It shows how powerful those primal physical programs are. A subtle slip-up in the projected reality caused a full-body jolt back home.
The ego clinging to physical safety, maybe? The second that non-physical scenario introduced a hint of physical danger or imbalance, snap. Back to the known solid container. It's a perfect example of that physical feedback loop.
Okay, what was the second experience that night?
This one was different, the parking lot experience. This time, he felt he was perceiving as himself, not watching a duplicate. Maybe more like that Mechanism A, pure essence travel.
What was the scene?
He's dressed in bright summer clothes, even a cap, leaning against a tall chain-link fence next to a big, full parking lot. Again, the visual detail is strong.
But the disruption wasn't physical this time.
No, it was auditory. Suddenly, he hears this high-pitched, plaintive, feminine voice call out, "Whoa, Bert!" his name.
Whoa. Okay, that would be startling.
He describes the sound as quite startling, very distinct and definite, coming from somewhere behind him. And significantly, it was his first time experiencing strong audio input during one of these states.
And the reaction, same as the jar.
Instantaneous snapback. He writes, "As soon as I heard it, I snapped my head around to see who was calling me and woke up." The unexpected personalized sound acted just like the physical jar.
So 2 attempts, 2 failures, but for different reasons. One was a perceived physical threat falling. The other was a startling sensory, almost emotional input being called by name.
Exactly. And these failures are incredibly valuable data. They map the boundaries of durability. It's not just about maintaining visual focus. You have to be able to withstand unexpected physical sensations and unexpected external sensory commands without that knee-jerk reflex pulling you back.
Joseph himself wondered if they were just distortions, right?
Yeah, but from our perspective, they're crucial data points. They show what triggers the return mechanism. He even notes trying to place the voice wasn't Jane's, but similar, higher pitched. That tells you how much impact that auditory personal call had. It was emotionally loaded, maybe, and that anchor pulled him right back.
It really highlights that the challenge involves mastering both physical reflexes and emotional triggers. You need to neutralize those deep survival mechanisms. Hashtag tag outro. So this whole deep dive into session 48, it paints such a vivid picture, doesn't it? These pioneers carefully measuring fingers 1 minute, trying to map the geography of the soul the next.
It really does. And the core lesson seems crystal clear. This kind of journeying isn't about moving through space like a spaceship. It's about transforming your energy, shifting your perspective.
And the biggest barrier isn't physical distance. It's our own ingrained belief in the solidity of things, that mental rigidity.
Right. Those protocols, Seth suggests asking for a letter, trying to grab that handful of sand they seem designed specifically to force the traveler to confront that belief head on, to challenge the camouflage.
Which brings us back to psychological time and durability. The lessons here feel like they go way beyond just, trying to project yourself to Florida.
Absolutely. If space and time really are just camouflages, just constructs, well, it forces you to ask, what else in our everyday lives are we accepting as absolute, solid reality when it might just be conditioning, habit?
A mental camouflage we haven't seen through yet.
Exactly. Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you today. Think about your own life, your own perceived limitations, maybe around money or what you think you're capable of, or even in relationships.
Are those limitations real, solid walls? Or are they more like mental camouflages, beliefs you just haven't managed to suspend your logic about yet?
What's the equivalent of that physical jar or that startling wail that your own subconscious uses to snap your awareness back into a smaller, more restricted reality when you start pushing boundaries?
And maybe, just maybe, what tiny handful of sand, what small, seemingly impossible proof of a larger reality could you collect for yourself by daring to challenge one of those mental camouflages today?
That feels like the real experiment Seth was encouraging, the inner work.
And if you want to explore this incredible material further, seriously, dive into the original works.
We can't recommend it enough. Check out the Seth Material via the New Awareness Network. Their website and bookstore is sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thank you for joining us on this rather mind-bending journey. Keep those minds open, keep questioning the camouflage.
And yeah, maybe take your vitamins, just in case.
Until next time.